so far, but that's okay. Is anybody working on a deal or something they wanted to talk about? I'm open to questions. I have nothing planned tonight. So if somebody wants me to review something or look at something or talk about a particular area that you want more information about, more than happy to do that, okay? Okay, so funding is finding information to help flush out the Excel sheet. To help flesh out, fill out, you mean? Is that what you mean, Phil? I assume that's what you mean. So really what we're looking for is a income, yeah, okay. Income and expense sheet when we think we have an opportunity. So when you get gross income and you get, the purchase price that you're working with, that can tell you enough really to decide whether you want to reach out and ask for additional information like an income or expense sheet. On the income and expense sheet, we're going to see the expenses and the income. That's all. It's nothing. It could be from an account. It could be an Excel format. It's just them showing us, what what they have in the way of the information required for us to evaluate the property properly. So, you're often going to ask for that, and in a lot of properties, you're going to see that um, that they don't actually have a lot of information or the numbers don't seem to make sense. That's not the end of the game, actually. That's not a terrible thing. It just means typically it's been mismanaged, and that's something that could be a benefit to us. So I don't think it's something you want to necessarily be disturbed or worried about. Um, really, we're trying to better understand, you know, if there's a problem there and if we can help resolve that problem. That's how we get paid. So when we look at the income and expense statement, that's really going to help us with the expenses and understanding it. But before we do that, really, you just need gross income and asking price. Really, um, what your purchase price is. Because if you see GRMs and cap rates of 3 and 4 or GRMs of 15, um, really it's not really worth your time to pursue it because there's not enough income to justify the price. Does that make sense to everybody? When you start getting into those higher numbers, there's just not enough income, and income really, for us, determines the asking price, right? What the price is worth, what's it worth to us. So just to look at my screen here, hold on one sec. Okay, so when we look at this deal here, we can just remove everything. So, let's remove everything. Let's remove this. Okay, units. Okay. So we have no numbers here now. Okay. The standard would be, we can just start with the 80/20, just for the example. We can even start with the 25-year, 30-year for the creative financing, and you'll see that the numbers are empty. We have nothing in here except this income, this expense. So when we go over here, if we wipe out clear contents, okay. So when we look at this here, if someone tells us that we have a property for 250,000, zero there, and they tell us that the gross income per month is $2,000. Okay, so and the number of units is 1, let's say, or just make it 2 just for the sake of multi-unit. Okay, so when we look at that, we see these numbers populate, but we have no purchase price. We actually have to put in a purchase price. So let's just assume it's the same price, right? Okay, 250,000. Now we look at this and we see immediately, we don't have to worry about this side of it, okay? But these numbers do matter. So a gross rent multiplier of 10 and a cap rate of 7.7, we can work with. This is a deal that we would ask, can you give the expenses? But understand something, right? I have exact expenses here. I have no money amount there, right? So if I go over here and just as an example, we're going to do this. So let's do this actually. Let's make this, let me do this. Maybe I should add this to make it simpler. Okay, we're gonna this over here. This, let's call this estimated expense. Now, estimated expense we're going to use as a ratio where we would think that the estimated expense, and actually I'm going to highlight that in a different color. We can do that. We'll just do this. Let's say we have no expenses, right? So we're going to change the format of this one. We're going to make this one, let's make this one work off the ratio. So equals this here times decimal 2.5, just to be safe. Okay, so when we go over here, we'll see this. Okay, so I'm just putting in a 25% ratio, okay? That's automatically just adding it up. Now, exact expenses should be 0, right, if we have numbers in here. Okay, if we have numbers in here, this should be 0. Let's just make that 25% as a standard, okay? So when we come back over here and we look and we see the gross rent multiplier is 10.5 and the cap rate is 5.3, we could possibly work with this. Now, you can see just on the standard financing, we'd be looking at a $2.4 and $50, for the cash flow. This obviously is not in its current state a good deal for us. And I would say that this is the edge of what we could make work, a 5.3. Because you remember, when we put in financing here, the financing is going to eat up, this 3.5 is going to eat up most of that cap rate. And everybody remembers, a cap rate is what we get if we paid cash, right? So if I make this 0 and 100% here, we look down here and look, 5.3, 5.3. If I paid cash, sure, I'd make more cash flow. For sure, I'd make more cash flow. But the cash flow, cash out, cash return is 5.3. Okay, that's the problem. All right, so it's the same as the cap rate. If I paid cash, that would be my return on investment. Once I put financing in, okay, obviously that's gonna create pressure on that, right? Because the financing cost me 3.5. So you can see what it does. It's 3.5 financing over 25 years is going to cost me, looks like about almost 3% in the way of income, return. Okay. Now, that's because there's not enough cash flow in the property, right? There's not enough cash flow in the property. Now, just a quick point here. If we got 30-year, look at the difference. If you can get 30-year mortgage, it's going to help you a great deal. But let's just stay with the standard 25, okay? Because that's what this monthly payment is establishing, okay? And that we're putting in 20%. Now, let's say this was 2,500, okay? Oops. Okay, so 2,500. We come down here and look. That extra $500 is really the difference here. Even if we put the 20% down, we'd be very close to the 10%. We're 188 per unit. Now remember something, we don't know anything exactly. All we've really inputted here, the vacancy, maintenance, property management, standard 20, the exact expenses, we're just going to leave at 25. Okay, so I have no expenses here. I don't know the expenses, but I know the asking price, and I know so I'm going to assume that's the same purchase price, and I know the gross rent. So if I have these two numbers, I can immediately establish whether there's an opportunity or not. Right? That's really what you want to do with the sheet, is you want to plug in these numbers, and immediately you'll know if there's an opportunity. Immediately you'll know, okay, if there's an opportunity. And if there is an opportunity, at this point I would say, okay, let's ask for an income and expense statement. Let's ask for an income and expense statement. Because if I change, just to give you an example, if I change this to 10 and 10, right, and I paid even 10% for this, let's go down here. Oh, I can't pay 10. Maybe if I can get that to 30. Yep, there it is. So now I know that if I can get a 30-year mortgage for 200, I can borrow 25,000, amortized over 30 years for 10%. I can pay someone 10% a year. I'll make 12.7, and I met my criteria of the monthly per unit. Okay, then I could start playing around with the numbers, and we could see that, you know, these are what we're making. This is what we're looking for. We've achieved all three, right? So before playing around with these numbers, and you can, obviously, I want you to get comfortable with looking at different options. I want you to first recognize if there's an opportunity there, okay? So recognize if there's an opportunity there, and then when you know the opportunity is there, you know, then we can decide whether the property is something we want to pursue. 30-year, 10-year. Oh, I left the 20 out. That's why. That actually would work. 10.9, 113. We could pay someone 30, even with a 25-year mortgage. We could pay them 30 at 6%. Oh, but we wanted that to be 10. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, we wanted it to be 10. That's why we would need that at 30. Point being is, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out if it's worth pursuing. Now, if we can get these numbers here, these two numbers showing 8.3 and 6.6, then we know that we're dealing with a property that we want to continue to, you know, look at as an opportunity. We want to continue to look at them. So let's do this actually. Let's make this a number we can change. So let's see that. Let's do that as yellow. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do this. Now, same number, but the reason I did that actually was to illustrate that once we get the expenses, so look at the numbers. Let's go back to 0 and 20, and let's go back to 25, and we see that we're at 9. Okay, it looks good. Let's say the expenses come back. This is pretty standard. The expenses, exact expenses come back, and we see that it's more like 30%. Okay, so it's 30% of the gross income's being eaten up. We look and we think, okay, this can't be done, right? But now I know because I looked at the income and expense sheet was sent to me. Are the banks generally reluctant to lend you money when there is a private lender involved, or they don't care, or even like the risk is spread across multiple people or less risk from them? So if it's an investment property, good question, Frank. If it's an investment property, the lender might actually want you to come up with 20% because it's an investment property. Now, if the lender wanted you to come up with 20%, what could you do and still do the creative financing? What could you do? This is open to everybody. What could you do? Give me some ideas of what you could do. That's a barrier. Let's get past it. Credit cards, okay, you could do that, okay. They might actually ask you, you know, if it's credit, they might ask you where did the money come from. You don't want to lie. You want to tell them it came from the credit card. But they're really looking for a deposit. A lot of people like to see the money in there for 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the lender. They want to see it there a couple months, 90 days typically. So we would set that up ahead of time. Well, I believe that you tell them, okay, but 30 days later, you set a contract with the private lender. Yep, you could do that, Frank. Good. Borrow from family and friends. Yep. Gift letter. Yep, you could do gift letter. Yep, that's right. Could we ask the lender, right? Could we ask the lender to give us all the money for the property and then refinance it? Could we do that? and that would leave 20% of their equity in. We could do that, right? So we could get the hard money lender to lend us all of the money, cash. So for cash purchase, help us out with actually negotiation. Okay, cash purchase. And what happens here? So it would be 0, and then 100 to the bank, to the buyer. Then we go back to the bank and we say, hey, I'd like to refinance. And then it becomes 80 and actually 20. And that's what it looks like, because the lender now has the money in. Now look at the numbers here, because we moved this to 30%. Let's go back to 25. I'll make that so you can change it. Okay. We're still no good here because of it's the amount of the loan and the mortgage. We'd have to do something over here. But let's see, we can fix this. We go 30 and 30, and I probably have to do 8%. Nope, 7 would get me there. So if I did a 30-year mortgage at 3.5, which is higher than, you can do better than that today, and the lender would have $50,000 in 30 years, 7%. That would give me 75 a door. Obviously, infinite is there, right? Or I could go back to 10 and 10 if I wanted to, 10 and 10, and then I could give a little bit more to my lender. Yeah, I can give a little bit more to my lender. There's lots of ways to do this when there's a good deal involved. The property and probably yours, just in case selling the property is not enough. The property and probably yours, in case of selling. Answering Michael's question about how does a lender secure his money. Yeah, with the property. Yeah, and you can use other property. Yeah, Michael, that's right. Yeah. So the property can be secured. Needs to be secured with the purchase price of the purchase of the property. So this is exactly what banks do. Yeah, it's 2 liens. This is exactly what banks do. When they lend you money, they're lending you money on the property that you're buying, right? They don't want to own the property. They don't want to, they don't want their name on the deed. All they want is security. So they lend you the money, knowing that you're going to use the money to purchase the property, and then the property has a registered lien, first position lien from the bank. That's what's happening there. If we have a lender on there, we have a second lien on there, second position lien. We have a second position lien on the property, and this is why the lender is secure with the property. Now, depending on the purchase price versus value, might be better for us to use the lender as a bridge financing, because the bank's only going to give us a loan based on value or purchase price, whichever is lower. Typically, the lender is. So that's again, these barriers that come up, all of them can be addressed. All of them can be worked around as long as we're willing to share the wealth. How do we share the wealth? Well, we have to start with a good deal. If we start with a bad deal, then it's a problem. We might come back to our expenses and find out it's only 20% of the value, and we'll see that this jumps really high. Okay, that's us putting in 10, then paying the lender 10. I mean, there's lots of money here. Even if we were doing a 25-year, let's see if that'll work. Yep, even if we were doing a 25-year mortgage and we were paying somebody 10%, and we put up 10, we'd still be 13.7%. So, this creative financing part can be done, and should be worked on only after we realize, do I have a decent cap rate and do I have a decent gross rent multiplier, right? The gross rent multiplier, actually, you can just calculate yourself before you even put it in the sheet. I mean, all it is the, gross monthly rent divided into the asking price, right? So that's where the gross rent multiplier comes. When you have gross rent multipliers, when you start double digits or 15, 12, it starts to get tough, right? Because if you think about it, let's see, this was 1,500. I mean, you can't make this work, right? You can't make this work because the difference between the cap rate and the financing is too tight. There's no room here. You're gonna lose money. So what people tell themselves or convince themselves is, well, I'll get financing. Sure, I'll only lose $300 a month because that's per unit. I'll lose $300 a month, but I'm going to end up owning this house in 30 years or 25 years. And that's a dangerous approach to real estate when you consider negative income. Who needs another negative income attached to their income, whether it's you work or you don't work, doesn't matter. You can't build a portfolio with a bunch of negative properties and expect to not put yourself at what we call high risk to ruin. If something goes wrong, you could be in serious trouble. If one of these people don't pay rent, you're in serious trouble. So, again, this is something that the average person does because they've never been educated about real estate, and they also do things like this. Okay, so they put 0, 0, 0, and they come back here and they go, oh, look, I'm only losing $14 a month, but they're not putting in the vacancy maintenance and property management in, so they've convinced themselves that they have a better property than they do. And again, this is dangerous, right? We just don't want to do that. So going back to the original point, hey, let's just go through our properties, get the asking price, get the gross rent, and then we can decide at that point. Phil was asking, how to fill out that sheet or where to get it. Just simply email and say, look, I'm interested in your property. Can you send me an income and expense statement? Now, at some point, you'll feel confident enough, I hope, sooner than later, that you'll just send out an offer. Before you get the income and expense sheet, you can just send out an offer. If you think you have an opportunity, say this is like this, let's say. If you came across a property where the cap rate was greater than 10, let's just change these back to 5 and 10. Okay. If I came across a property and I'm looking at the property and I see this and this and this, I'm going to put out an offer before I get any information. Does everybody understand? Why we'd want to do that? Right, we'd want to put out an offer. Let's change that to 25 here, in the absence of knowing the actual numbers. Okay, so everybody understands we would make this 0. If we had the exact expenses, we just make it a 0, right? It would just be a 0. But since we're estimating the expenses at 25%, it's just generating a number for us. Once we get the real numbers, we'd make this a 0. All right, we just change that to 0. Does everybody understand? Yes? Good. Okay, good. Okay, I'll update the sheet to show that. Excellent. Okay, so when we go back here, if I come across a property and I see this, asking price is $250 and the gross rent multiplier is $3,000. Just put out an offer. Just put an offer up right away. Right? Is everybody confident in doing that? Putting on an offer? What if nobody has an idea what their gross rent multiplier might be? You don't. So give me 1 second. No LOL. Okay, yes. Okay. So Phil, the gross rent multiplier, we calculate that, right? We calculate that. So just to go back over here for a second. Remember, we're only getting, so let's just use 100,000 because it's easy. 100K is purchase price, okay? And the gross rents are 2,000, say. $2,000 a month, which is high, but who cares? $1,000 a month, which is the gross rent multiplier, is the gross rent. All we're doing is we're dividing 100K by 2,000, which is going to give us a gross rent multiplier of, my apologies, forgive me. We have to multiply by 12. Jumping the gun So we're multiplying that by 12. So we multiply the 2,000 times 12, which gives us 24,000. And then that's per year. And then I take 100K divided by 2,400, 100 equals, what is it, 4 point something? I'll call it 4.1. That's the gross rent multiplier. So you actually calculate that, Phil. Sam, do you recommend making deals on remote properties, knowing that if there is a issue, only one flight trip will eat up all your return, and not sure what one flight trip would be sufficient to fix things? Okay. Okay, so number one, oh, it's Frank saying, should we set up a rule like no further than 2 to 3 hour drive from your location? Really, Frank, that's preference. If a property is not in your location, that becomes a question of your team, right? Your people that are there, which are your property management companies. So, if you feel initially, Frank, that you want to stay in that range, go ahead initially, right? But at some point, we want to be confident enough to, because we have the team in place, to be able to seek out opportunities wherever they are. So really, that's a question of, what you're comfortable with. And as you become more confident, I'm sure that radius will get larger for you. So, Philip, does that answer your question? Great, Frank. Good. Philip, are you good with the GRM? Let's see something here. I understand the GRM, not how to get an approximate rent number, though. Oh, you can't. Are you talking about a single unit house? Because otherwise, pretty much all the listings have rent in them now. You're not going to typically see no rent number in an income property. Is that what you're talking about, like single family, Philip? Yes, the realtor I have currently doesn't have rent included in the multi-unit listing. Okay, well, I mean, that's a simple email should get you that information. I don't know why a realtor would list a property without income numbers. Um, that would make me nervous, I guess. Give me 1 second. So if they don't have it, Phil, just ask. But I don't know why someone would not have that if they wanted to sell a house. I don't understand that at all. Why someone would not want to, you know, publicize that unless the number was bad. So income numbers, income numbers on a property, pretty standard as a required, or at least even marketing, you would want in there. So let me just show something real quick. Okay, so let's go back to sharing the screen. Okay, so right now we're looking at, just some clauses in a property. I want you to get, the idea that you're okay, to ensure that, you're okay to put out offers, and be protected and do your due diligence as needed. Okay, so here's an example. Terms, conditions, schedule letters shall prevail. In the event of scheduled A. So this is Schedule A. Let's say this is attached to the agreement shall prevail in the event of a conflict with terms and conditions of the attached agreement of purchase. Just means that these clauses trump the other clauses. That's what it means. So The offer is conditional upon the buyer being satisfied with the statement of income and expense. See that? See? So even though we don't have income and expense, we have a clause that says, look, if I'm not happy with the income and expense, this is no go. The offer is conditional on the buyer being satisfied with the information pertaining to tenants, including the copy of leases, names, all that information. So you don't have this information yet, right? Once you know there's an opportunity, you could attach this to an offer, send this out, and obviously I would love it if you reviewed it at least once with an attorney or your realtor, someone you know, who knows. Attorney would be preferred, to tell you the truth, just so you know and they know what you're doing. The seller agrees just once, right? The seller agrees to cooperate for providing the access to the property, right? The offer is conditional on the inspection of the property. The offer is upon the arranging at his own expense, at its own expense, satisfactory insurance coverage. The offer is conditional approval of terms and conditions of the buyer's partner and solicitor, right? So my partner and my solicitor has to agree. The offer is conditional upon the buyer obtaining at his own expense satisfactory financing to his or her, them, and the said property on or before this date, failing in which this offer shall be null and void, and the deposit shall be returned to the buyer without deduction. The seller agrees the vendor take back the amount of, and you just put a number in here, right? So you could do that relatively quickly and feel confident you're protected if you see an opportunity, right? Once the realtor knows that you are an investor, he or she should always give you those red numbers. If she does not, go with another one. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, it's odd that someone wouldn't share that with you. But yeah, if someone's not cooperating with you, I agree. I mean, if they're not providing what you need, that's a no-go. So does everybody have a copy of this? I have a more heavier one than this one. Does anybody need a copy of this or doesn't have a copy of this? Everybody's got one? Don't have it? Okay. Okay, here. Hold on one sec. Okay, so it's right here in the box. Right there. You can download it right there. Go ahead and do that now. And you just, you add that to the standard, offer to purchase to the province that you're in with the numbers that you want. And you make sure that, you should get it reviewed first to make sure those clauses are in there. And you know what you're doing that one time. And then you feel more confident. Every time you see an opportunity, you can throw this offer out. Boom, you just throw the offer out. Now, those are the clauses that will protect you if things go, awry, or the information's not sufficient, or it's not good enough. You can immediately exit out of the deal based on the conditions of that. Now, obviously, there's dates in there, dates that you have in there, but you give yourself the appropriate amount of time. Stagger the dates. Move them around. 14 days is pretty good for most of those clauses. The one that this offer is conditional on approval of terms of hereafter by the buyer's partner and solicitor. If there's no date on that, you can literally get out of the deal until the end. You have time. Typically, though, someone's going to ask you for a date and time if they know what they're doing. They're going to ask you for a date on that. But most of those, they're pretty standard. They're just modified to ensure that, we can attach it to any contract and feel relatively confident. Again, this is something I'd love for you to review once with an attorney, just to make sure you understand and they can share with you any exceptions or anything that you have exposed to. I want you to work with professionals. It's well worth it. And then, once it's been okayed and you've been okayed by an attorney, your attorney, more specifically, you can send that agreement out whenever you want. The agreement's good. You just plug in the numbers. The agreement's good. You can actually send something like this. You can send to a realtor. Say, yeah, I like your property. I'm interested in this property. Put these numbers in plus these conditions. Attach it to the end of the contract. Send it to me, and I'll sign it. That's it right there. Then you get the property under contract, and now you can go through your due diligence sequentially as you need to ensure that the deal is a good deal. right? Because you don't have the numbers yet. So you don't have to wait. If you see an opportunity, you can jump on it based on uh, just really income, gross income, and purchase price. That's all you really need to trigger the next step of putting out an offer. Now, again, if you're not comfortable with that at this point, that's okay. Don't panic. Don't worry about it. You go at your own pace. At some point, though, we need to put out offers if we want to make money, right? We can't get properties without the process of the offer to purchase and the acceptance you know and so on and so on. So really, it's you don't need a ton of information initially to do it, but you need, your due diligence, obviously, to move forward with the deal. Does that make sense to everybody? We want to be able to feel confident and safe when we do this stuff, but at the same time, we don't want to hesitate if there's an opportunity. I tried to change the Ontario purchase offer template based on Elizabeth's momentum recommendations. My realtors, a rookie, get nuts. It says I'm trying to reinvent in real estate, saying that the provincial template cannot be changed. Well, I changed realtor now. How likely is the realtors are willing to accept the change the original Ontario offer template? Well, what you can do, Frank, is you can use the regular template in Quebec, but you can add, an Appendix A with these clauses. You don't need to change the actual contract, Frank. Just leave the same contract. This goes for everybody. All you're doing is you're adding a second, a copy attached to the contract that's an Appendix A or Appendix B, whatever you want to call it. And it has additional clauses that you put in, Frank, that say that if there's a conflict between the original document and my clauses win. That's really what you're trying to do, Frank. You don't need to change the contract itself. Just leave the contract as it is. Yeah, just add it. Yeah, you just add it. You just add it to the original contract, and then you shouldn't have a big problem. Yeah, an addendum. That's it. Exactly right. Off topic. If you find a distressed home with no for sale sign but definitely neglected, how would you try to get the property? We have several here in our neighborhood. So you could do the postcard where you just leave a postcard in the mail. If they're receiving mail, you can leave a postcard in there that you're interested in the property. We're new investors in the area. We're interested in properties similar to yours. If you're interested in selling, we'd love to have a conversation about it. You can please contact us at this email address and this phone number if you wish to add the number. That's really all you got to do as a first step. If you don't get a response, and I would say in 2 weeks, I would do a second one, and then after a month, if you don't get back to them and you really want to pursue it, you can obviously ask neighbors and stuff if they know who owns it, but you can do a title search on it. You do a title to find out who owns it, and but that costs money. Obviously, a title search costs money, but if you want to go to that next step, you can. So. There are ways for us to pursue it. I would use the postcard method. If they're distressed and nobody lives in them, is that what you're saying, right? They're distressed and nobody lives there, right? If somebody lives there, you can knock on the door. Does that answer your question, Tammy, Troy? Oh, we think there are people living. Okay, then just come up, walk up to the door. Let's do it together. Walk up to the door, middle of the day. You know, hi. We're investors, new investors in the area. We're looking for properties similar to this one. Just wanted to know if you were the owner of the property. If they say no, can you let me know who the owner is? We'd like to reach out to them about purchasing this property. And if they're reluctant to give you the information or what you can do, yeah, it's free of charge. Yeah, wait, you may ask the realtor or realtor to investigate, contact the owner on your behalf. You could do that too, right? You could bring a buying realtor into it. Buying realtors. If you have someone that's gonna hustle for you that way, sure. Buying realtors, I don't they're not really going to try to get you the best deal, and they don't want to deal with distressed properties. But you might find someone that would be conducive to that for some benefit to them. Um, but Tammy and Troy, just go up to the house, knock on it, tell them you're new investors in the area. You're interested in the property. Like to talk to the owner. Are you the owner? No. Can I get the owner's information so I can reach out to him? Is there any contact information you could share with me? They say, well, we're uncomfortable sharing that. Say, great. Here's our information. Then you give it to them, your business card, or you give them a postcard, and you say, can you get them to reach out to us? We would appreciate it. That's it. Does that sound okay? Yeah. I do it obviously middle of the day, daylight hours. Definitely you don't want to seem aggressive or I do it together too. The two of you together would be a good setup, you know. And you don't want to be aggressive or anything. We're interested in the area. We're new investors in the area. Yeah, just do it nice and easy. If nobody answers the door, you can put the postcard in the mailbox or in the mail slot, and then you're done with that. You do what you can. You plant the seeds like the farmer. You don't know which ones are going to root, and hopefully, you do enough of those. You will actually. If you do enough of those, someone's going to reach out to you because you never know who's on the other side of your deal or what's motivating them or what they're going through. So that's why in some cases, um, the shotgun method of just putting out the postcards or flyers, putting up the bandit signs, stuff like that, is going to attract attention. Putting up an ad on Kijiji, we buy ugly houses, we buy houses, as is, things like that. Definitely can attract a bigger group of people, widening your net to allow you to have a bigger funnel of opportunities coming your way. This is why we say time's everything. So you're trying to be as efficient as possible, and you don't want to let too many people stand in your way of your progress, right? So there's so much you can do in the way of attracting opportunity. Building up your power team, they're a source of opportunity, like the ones that aforementioned, the bandit signs and postcards, ads. I mean, all of that stuff is an opportunity for you to attract opportunity. Obviously, and we talked about before. I remember in the class, I'm sure you guys remember we talked about the for rents. That's an opportunity. A lot of this stuff, the marketing stuff, typically is covered in your classes. I do want and I hope that everybody's moving forward with their classes in a don't cram them all together, but just I'd love for you to obviously get on the on-demand as quickly as possible to give you the information concerning the particular area that you're interested in. And obviously, we have these Tuesday night meetings that we have to move forward with. We definitely want to keep the progress going, step by step, little by little. That's how we get there. Okay. Would that be good for wholesale? Absolutely. Same deal. Yep. Same deal. Yep, for sure. Now remember, wholesalers, you need buyers and sellers. So it's not just about finding property. It's better if we have a buyer looking for a property and giving us detail on what those opportunities are that they're looking for. Then it's much more, honed into what we're looking for to help these people out. Remember, you get paid for solving problems, so identify the problem. There's also the people that are, directly around you are opportunities. People that are renting that maybe want to own. People that are renting that aren't happy where they are and want to move. People that are, looking for an investment opportunity but haven't been approached or, haven't felt comfortable because they haven't found the right deal. Everybody around you is involved in real estate in one way or another: buyer, seller, renter, owner, investor. Pretty much everybody around you might be a potential opportunity for you to solve a problem for them while, making money. And we should feel good about making money when we're helping other people out, as well as the people that we're helping out. Most people are okay with that. Some people are not. Unfortunately, that you make money because they don't understand, or they count other people's money, as we say, and worry about how much you're making. But for the most part, if you're helping people out and you show value, most people are okay with you profiting from the transaction. Okay, looks like it was a question. Any other questions? This is not for the week. This is not for the week, but I will offer my situation for next week. Okay, I do not expect to look at this week, but I keep starting to lose texts. Maybe we can look at it next week. Maybe postmortem. I'm buying a house in Meriwether, Alberta. Okay, I am buying it because it comes with a convenience grocery store. Yeah. An acquaintance. I use supplied fireworks, sunglasses, and maybe in October, and that's interesting to buy the store. I don't think I could do it, but my wife and I went down and looked at it. He offered to me was that he would sell me the store with the land on it for $1 if I bought his house for $125,000. Sounds like a great deal for the right person. My wife and I liked the store, and the house was okay. The house is 1,000 square foot, 1,044 square feet on 1,400 square foot lot. I'm sure it's the biggest lot in town. I'm sure it is the biggest lot in town, bigger than most by at least double. On the corner block and a half from the store on Central Street. The store is about 3,500 square feet, and about another 1,400 square feet. Okay. For next week, for actually 300 square feet on about another 1,400 square feet. Actually, 4 commercial lots. Okay, the lots have nothing on them, as you're saying. The one obviously has the business on it. There's 3 other lots. Is that what you mean, Charles? With the mortgage for the store, I would rip up the floor and fix the rotted floor joists and roof, which is the source of the water damage. That's for the house or the business? I'm assuming that's the house, right? The store is occupying 2 of the 4 lots. Okay, so it's one building, and 2 of the 4 lots, the house is a different property. Okay, so Charles, the property, the store is got 4 units, and 2 of the units are taken up by this. Is that what you mean? Or you mean 2? Okay, so there's 2 empty units, right, Charles? Okay, and how many people live in this town? 500. Okay, and what do people do there? What do they do there? How do they live? How do they survive, these 500 people from the Mister? Farming. Okay, it's mostly then just farming community. Oil. Okay. Ranching. Okay. All right. So what's the house really worth? Do you know? 110. And what's the business worth? Okay. What's the business estimated value? 125K. I see. So so Charles, have you talked to a mortgage broker about this? Okay. Now if he's giving you the business for $1, But why can't you use the equity in the business to finance the house in some form? Has that been talked about? Okay, that's a question I would ask, Charles. I'm buying the business for a buck. Okay, it's worth 125,000. I want to use the equity in this to finance this. The business could buy the house and rent it to me. Sure they could. Sure they could. There's 100 ways to do it. Yeah, there's 100 ways to do it. So, so, but I want you to talk to a mortgage broker about the staggered purchase. Okay, the staggered purchase. I want to buy this. He's going to sell me this business for $1. I want to refinance or finance the purchase of the house. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because once you own the business, then you can use the equity of the business to finance the purchase, or some of the purchase in some form of the property. You just go to a mortgage broker and tell them what you want to do. Say, look, this is the deal. The whole thing's worth 250. I'm getting it for 125, basically. I'm sorry, 235. So the whole value of the whole thing is really 235, right? Right, Charles, right? 235, and you're paying 125, right? Yeah. So my apologies. You're paying 110. I thought it was 125 that he wanted you to buy it for. All he wants is 110. Bargain down. Okay. Well, I mean, if a group purchase, because look what you can do, Charles. You could buy the business, finance it with the other property. Now the whole value of these two things is 235. You got 110 into it. Really is the purchase. You could literally sell the business or the property and get all your money out and have whatever is left over for free. You could flip both of them and make, $150,000. You could keep both if you want. That's fine. If you want to run the business, because I know you talked to me about this and you were interested possibly in doing that, that's okay too. So, I mean, something like this where there's a massive amount of equity becomes a question of verifying the reality of this purchase, because the house and the business combined are 235 and this guy's asking 110. That's pretty amazing as a deal. Now, the area that you're there, if you want to move there, Charles, with the family and run the business, and that's what you want to do, that's great. Absolutely go ahead. City Records, okay. You want an appraiser out there too, and the lender will typically do that for the house, maybe not for the business, but you talk to the mortgage broker for an appraisal. If you want to live there, great. If the numbers are real, that's a great deal. If you feel like running the business, if you don't want to run the business, and you don't want to live there, then flip it out. You should easily make, 100 to 175 maybe on the high end. I'm sorry, my apologies. 210, 110, 135. My apologies. You should be making, 100 grand. Let's say a 75 to 100 grand range, pretty easy. Passing on the discount to someone else. You could get the property and actually, Charles, you could use the equity in this purchase to finance the rehab too, because there's equity in this. There's lots you can do when you're talking about a deal this good, based on the numbers you're sharing. So Charles, if you could throw all the numbers in, get more information. We could talk more about this next week. Absolutely. I would like to run it for 5 to 10 years, but think of equity for apartments in Saskatoon. The rehab will increase equity. Yes, Forced appreciation. If business can pay for the financing of 235, we can cash out the difference. Yeah, absolutely, Michael. You're absolutely right too. That kind of deal is there's enough equity in there to do it. To do it. Absolutely. And the other thing you could do is because there's so much money in this deal, partnership becomes an opportunity, and creative financing where you can pay someone, 10 or even 15% return on their loan if it's a short-term loan that you're refinancing the property, just so you can get the capital together to do it, so you can refinance it at a later date, say 90 days or a year from now. Lots of opportunity. Lots of opportunity. Okay. Okay, so if you want to update this, my apologies. You want to update this that next week, Charles? More than happy to share that with the group. My pleasure. Sounds like a good deal. Sounds like a great deal. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up? Got a couple minutes. I'm gonna wrap up. Yes. Oh, my pleasure, Michael. I thought you were saying Sam. Like you're saying Sam to get my attention. That was funny. Okay, so okay, so this week, just a real quick recap. If we see an opportunity based on income and gross rent, let's talk about and continue to have this conversation about putting out offers. If you want, we can continue to talk about that next week. I'd like you to be more confident with that and be able to do that so you don't miss out on any opportunities. Other than that, I will wish you all a great week. If you need to talk to me before then, obviously you know how to reach me. And thank you, everybody, for coming this week. So if you're good, type in yes or Y, and we're good to go. Good, 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 good.